Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. So now we have Susan Chang, who is the principal data scientist of Elasticsearch. She's going to be talking to us on growing your ML career via technical writing and speaking, and she's going to give us some awesome tips and lessons based on her experience. So she's a principal data scientist at Elastic, which powers search around the world. And previously, she has built machine learning at scale in the fintech, social, and telecom industries. She's the author of Machine Learning Interviews, which is published by Orally. Please join me in welcoming Susan Chang for this amazing talk.
Hello. Hi. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Wanted to keep this talk a bit kind of conversational, have more Q&A, but I'll walk through a bit of my journey and see how maybe it could help all of you. Okay. Let's see. So yeah, as she introduced, I'm a principal data scientist at Elasticsearch, and we make Elasticsearch along with tools like Kibana, things like that. There's a lot of people who store their data in us, so I've been able to work with a lot of things, and now in generative AI because we are a vector database as well. And I've worked in a few other industries in the past, but I've also been speaking a lot too at events like this one. I've spoken at a lot of PyCons around the world, so that's one of the largest Python conferences. And this is the book that I wrote, and it's published by O'Reilly, which is a pretty large tech publisher. You might have heard of it. This took me 1 year to write, which is actually a bit of a rush job. I don't know why I did it like that, but that's how it worked. So a few things I'm going to talk about today. Starting out as a beginner, because actually one of the common questions that I get is, I'm kind of new to this, like how do I get started? My talk here is not about necessarily you're working already as, let's say, someone who writes blog posts about technical content, but rather, anyone working anywhere could write and do that stuff for yourself. And part two would be around building an audience with writing and how you would get started with that. And again, pretty beginner friendly. And next, I'll be talking about more speaking opportunities and how you could get those and kind of demystify how you get invited to events as a speaker and things like that. And then I'll also share a story about how I got the book deal, which is also pretty mysterious to a lot of people, but I can share as much details as I can. Okay, so first, starting as a beginner. I started attending free events in the Toronto area since even earlier than this. This is like actually a bit later, but we had like a pretty big group in this meetup called Aggregate Intellect, and they hosted free events. I was a new grad, I think, and I was working, I forgot. But anyway, I was just showing up and eating the free food and meeting people. So, anyone could do this if you have some time to spare. I know for people who have to commute from outside of Toronto, it's a bit harder. There's some investment. I had to invest my time into commuting, and maybe I was tired after work, but I would still show up. I met a lot of people here at this meetup, a lot of which are actually speakers, attendees, or even organizers, even the chair, or committee in this conference, this very conference. So this is what it was like me as an attendee. Later on, I helped organize this meetup as well. And I kept attending events. This is from, I think, last year, maybe. I met the founder of LangChain, Harrison, at an event, which I appeared at for free. So what I mean to say is you can meet a lot of incredible people, founders, even people in this audience, this conference. Like if you meet one person, that could be someone that you could help each other out in your careers. And then here is some more events, community, Toronto ML people. I show these pictures to say, you could be attending, you are literally attending this event, right? Like you can meet some folks here. They could be fellow data scientists. They could be hiring managers. They could be organizers of people who, organizers of events who have a need for speakers. So that's where this all connects. Like I think based on just like this group of folks, like I think there's so many speaking opportunities just for like being in this room. So just saying, like, when you're attending events, I know this is a talk about, yeah, speaking and writing, but it's also a bit about like meeting people, a bit about community, because when you're speaking, it's basically like you're communicating to someone, right? It's like being part of a community. You're communicating to a community of people. So you want to ideally attend consistently, right? I've actually been coming to this conference, TMLS, for years. Yeah, like there's people I met like 5, 6 years ago and only now really like manifested in anything that was like a speaking opportunity or writing or career growth or anything. And I think, you know, giving space to the organizers and attendees is also useful. What I mean is this, like the organizers are like super busy, so it's really good to like catch up with them so then they remember you, but then kind of like, you know, like go and do like the other stuff, like talking to other attendees, listening to the talks and things like that. And I think the best way to meet speakers is literally just to pay attention to the talks. Like the speakers are usually people who have accomplished a few things in their career. And I think once I was paying attention to some talks, I could then talk to the speaker afterwards, and boom, that's like one person you've met at some event. So we're all a little bit shy in new environments. I think when I recommend this approach to maybe like, you know, you just get any opportunity. I'm not saying, oh, attend events with the intent to get speaking opportunities or to get writing opportunities. The intent is for this to be, it opens up doors for anything, even to get hired. So keep in mind that people are not averse to you introducing yourselves. Like if you know, step up to a circle of people and you introduce yourselves, like they're not gonna hate it. Like they might, like maybe they're talking about something and they're deep in the conversation, but they're not gonna hate it, right? They're not gonna hate you. So that's okay. If you're feeling nervous, you can just have like a, you know, like a small little smile. It'll really help you when you introduce yourself to people. And actually other attendees are probably feeling the same way as you are. So if someone talks to them, they'll feel, wow, like someone talked to me at this event, stuff like that. So I have that as a kind of preamble to say a lot of these opportunities that I got was, I started out not with the goal of speaking or like writing a book or anything. I was just attending these events, meeting people without a particular goal in mind. But now that I look back, I can see that this was like one of the ways that really kickstarted everything. I was able to become a speaker despite being a relatively new grad. Like I was working for maybe a year or under, and I had already started speaking. One of the reasons is because I was attending these events regularly. So there's the Aggregate Intellect event that I was attending a lot for free. I was listening to the talks. I was engaging with the speakers on like the details of their talks. And then the organizers were, I think I first started with just like being a moderator for one of the talks because the organizers are looking for some help, and then I was there. I was a familiar face. So the organizers trusted me enough to be a moderator. So the next thing was when they're looking for a speaker, and I did the moderation, I think, decently, like I didn't bomb it at least. So they were, you know, comfortable enough with me to invite me to do a real talk, or I forgot if I volunteered myself or if they asked me. But regardless, I got a slot, and then I was able to talk at one of these meetups. So this is how I got my first kind of big like meetup talk. And it took a while, right? I wasn't really aiming for that. I just naturally got that. And I think another thing that you could do if you want to start speaking or getting these opportunities is to maybe volunteer yourself for a low stakes talk. So this could be lightning talks where there's multiple speakers in one kind of session, right? So I think one of the things I did was there was a machine learning journal lightning talk thing that the Aggregate Intellect meetup was hosting, and I think every person just had 5 minutes to quickly summarize a paper. So that was really low stakes, and I signed up for that to do that. So Now I'm a presenter at this meetup, right? So low stakes, it helps with getting these opportunities, and then you could start building up to, oh, you're doing a 30-minute talk, you're doing a 1-hour talk, right? Just starting from a 5-minute talk. And once you do well in that, you could be invited to longer talks, basically. So this is partially gaining trust with the organizers. So I was able to do that even though I was working for only 1 or 2 years at the time. And actually, like, I did meet someone earlier today that was wondering, oh, like, you know, I'm a machine learning engineer, and then there's a lot of speakers that are maybe like staff level or principal level. Maybe like, wow, like, I guess I feel a bit like, oh, I'm just a machine learning engineer. But I was also like that too. Like, I started like that. I think I spoke at a TMLS event with a co-presenter when I was data scientist. No senior data scientist, no like staff data scientist, just data scientist. So this is one of the things that you could do. So in summary, the way that I did this, maybe there's other ways that other people have gotten these opportunities, right? But the way that this happened for me was I just went to events like once in a while. I wasn't really trying to go every day or anything because I have other things to do. But if you go to one event once a month, which is not, it is a big commitment sometimes, but it's a reasonable commitment. And if you go there, and even if you're a bit shy, let's say you only make a goal to meet 1 new person per event, then every event you'll meet 1 person at least, and then you'll have met 12 people in these events. And you might have opportunities, like they could be hiring managers, they could be conference organizers, they could be even editors at like major tech blogs, things like that. So that's like the part about speaking that was how I started. The next part is building an audience. So I started writing stuff on LinkedIn, so to speak. And I actually don't really write that much. I think I have, if we just want to bring up numbers because I don't really care, I think I have like 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. This is not a very big number compared to some people. But for some people, it is considered a reasonably large number. So I don't think it's very like impressive or anything, but I just post it consistently. I actually don't really write so many like things. I just write about when I get a promotion. I write about, oh, I spoke at this talk. Here's a summary of this talk. Or even I started writing a blog, which I wrote for many, many years. I had that blog from 2017, I think. So every time I posted a new blog, I would post about it also on LinkedIn. So you're just reusing whatever you write. And I might post about, oh, some kind of topic that I did at work so that people would know that I'm doing work at work and that I know about the details. So these are things I post about. It's not very, let me quickly skip to one example I had. So I think a lot of people think like posting on LinkedIn and writing is maybe like really like more detailed like this, right? This is a higher investment in your time, and this is helpful. This is great. I also sometimes write like posts like Chip Huyen and other people do, which is basically an entire blog post in the LinkedIn post, and it's about like a highly technical topic. But you don't have to do this all the time. Like, I tried doing that for a little bit, and I burned out pretty much. I just stopped posting for a while. So I think the kind of thing I mostly share about is things that are happening at work or achievements that I have accomplished. So this is, like, I'm talking about this conference. This one is about, yeah, my course on O'Reilly. So this is kind of like, oh, I did this. I'm going to share it, and maybe you could sign up as well. This one as well is, oh, I did this thing at work, and you can watch the video, right? So this is, I'm already doing stuff, technical work. I'm writing about it, or I'm creating video content about this work that I'm doing. And let's say you're not already working at a company with projects like this, you could write this about your personal projects as well, right? Like school projects. You could write about other types of projects that you're doing, things that you're learning, right? Oh, I completed this. This is what I learned. I think the main thing, though, is that I wish I'd screenshotted them more, like see more, because I still did do like a little summary of these events in the body. I wasn't just linking the link, and I think that is not very valuable for people that follow me. What's valuable is just providing a quick summary at least. So those are things that I started writing. And this talk is not about LinkedIn writing. It's about just general opportunities. And part of that is achieved with writing. And this is the blog that I was talking about. This is a blog I started with from 2017. I just wanted to share with people how to do things. So I think my first blog was, it was like a retrospective thing. I think I'd finished my master's or something, but I kept getting questions about, oh, how do you apply to the master's? So I wrote a blog that was about how I applied to my master's and a master's degree and how I asked for recommendation letters, referrals, like things like that. But after that, I kept learning things at work, and I wanted to write more about how you can do those things too for people who aren't like working with me or people with a similar background. And how this actually then helped with at work is, even though I was a relatively new grad, like I was like, my work experience was pretty low, but I was able to get trust to be placed on pretty good projects because I was writing about recommender systems. I was speaking about recommender systems outside of work. And that, in turn, let the managers think, oh, Susan knows what she's talking about. Susan could be put on this project, and I think it would be fine. So that's how I got, it's like snowballing, right? Like I started writing because I was interested, even though I wasn't working with it already. That's the main thing. Like I wasn't working with recommender systems or reinforcement learning, but then I started doing speaking and writing about it. And then I was able to work on even more complex projects formally at work. So then I could write more about it. I could speak more about it because I just started doing it without being on this project at work yet. So one recommendation I would say is you can start writing about some things at work or about something you want to do at work, maybe. You could learn more about it. And then you could attend talks and you could write some summaries. And then you might get more trust and then you would be able to work on this as well. So I think if you start posting, don't worry so much about the numbers, because when I started posting too, right, we often see people with like a lot of engagement and things like that. And I think even to this day, I don't super get so much engagement, but I just post because why not? I have something to share, and I think like I just want to be consistent, right? I don't want to disappear from LinkedIn forever. I just want to post now and then and not worry like, oh, if I don't get 100 likes, then I'm not going to post. Like, I guess that's not the main point for me. Okay, so I know that went by really, really fast. I'm going to try to have to speed through this. So this is a meetup talk that I did, I think, one of the first talks that I did where I was like the main speaker. And then this is a few years later where I was the keynote speaker at PyCon Berlin. So this is all achieved with the exact things that I talked about. Speaking at local, small events or internal events. I think someone was asking me like, how do go to that step where you gain trust at work? You can speak at internal talks at work. There were a lot that I spoke about when I was working at Bell. Bell Canada. We had lunch and learns about journal machine learning papers and things like that. And I would put my name up to speak at some of them. And I think that's one way you could do it if there are internal opportunities. If not, you could kind of put in more effort and organize one yourself, depending on how hard you want to get this started at work. Or you could get together a group of, let's say, 5 people and say, hey, maybe we could do like these lunch and learns, and then you can have, boom, like speaking opportunity. And I still do speak at smaller events. Like this is like another free meetup that we had at Spadina. I forgot which office this is. The Center of Social Innovation. On Spadina? Yeah, so this event space, I still speak at these free events. So here's a quick summary. The speaking opportunities in order of common to rare. The short events, main talk at a meetup event, a regular talk spot at a conference, which might take a few years to get to this point, but then you can speak here. Like, just start speaking at meetups, and if you want to, you can speak here. If you have a good proposal. And then you could get, like, later, I know this sounds like I'm like hand-waving this whole thing, but this is how I got here through a few years of speaking, starting from attending free events. And one last thing I'll add on this point is from the organizer's perspective, like what value are you demonstrating to say, so the organizers will say, hey, I want to get, such and such as a speaker. It's actually not so hard, right? They know that I've spoken at a few smaller venues like meetups. Maybe some of these meetups had recordings. Like Aggregate Intellect had recorded a lot of these sessions. So that was pretty easy. Like there was some proof, right? If you are doing that at work, maybe you could record your screen share and something and talk over it. And then you could, actually that's confidential info, so maybe don't share that with conference people. But like if they're, let's say in an internal conference, like they wanted to ask for some proof, then you would have something to show them. And also like recommendations from committee members. The way I later found out why I got invited to PyCon Berlin was because one of the volunteers, I think committee members, they were thinking about who to invite as a keynote. And then someone had seen my book or something, my LinkedIn post basically, or my blog, and then said, hey, maybe we can invite Susan. Because I had written also about speaking at conferences. So I know that's a lot about the speaking part, some about the writing part. For the writing, what I'm going to recommend is the same thing as speaking, right? You just do it consistently. You write about something that's in your work experience or your project experience. It can be very technical, and it can be also high level, right? Because there's people who share a lot of code online, and that works too. But I find it, from my experience, like it's good if you have a mix of highly technical, like mid-technical, and like more high-level content and blogs, so that different types of people can find what you're writing, and they can be inspired and learn from it. So bonus story of getting the book deal. I'm now a published author, and then we had this event. I was also a keynote at this conference called Data Day Texas, which was in Austin, Texas. And that was really fun to see the books and do a book signing. So how did this happen? I was speaking and I was writing for a few years. So speaking actually includes some writing because, for example, these slides, it is written content. It's not the same exactly, but I think people can tell that you are able to produce written content. So I chatted with the O'Reilly team, and then I was invited to do an online course. So the first thing I did with O'Reilly was actually this online course, because I had been speaking and writing for years. And then afterwards, they kept asking me for a few months to put in a book proposal. A book proposal is not the same as a guaranteed publishing deal. It's as if someone from company A, an outbound recruiter, DM'd you on LinkedIn and then said, hey, you want to apply to our role? And then you get added to a pool of candidates. So basically, this stage was not like, hey, Susan's going to write a book. This stage is Susan's going to put in a proposal, and then she's going to be added to a list of, I don't know how many, 20 to 50 proposals about this rough topic. And then from these they'll select like one. So I later did put in a proposal after a few months because they still couldn't fill this book. And then after that, I guess my proposal got accepted, and then I signed the contract, and then I started to write the book. I know this kind of seems like very nonchalant, but I think one thing about the proposal and everything, right, for job applications and everything is that you would like to make sure the proposal and application provides as much info that can make the either the organizers trust you, or in this case, the publishers trust you. So I brought up a lot of my past speaking, my past writing, and even just like, oh, they can know that Susan can write a book, that kind of thing. So what helped me was really consistency throughout the years without super much knowing or expecting what the outcome is going to be. But then it's like, if you invest in enough, I think the kind of outcome is like maybe like a curve like this, right? At first it seems like you're not really getting much payoff, and then suddenly you have a lot of doors open, writing, speaking, all at the same time. So yeah, like if you actually have specific goals, I didn't really have them, but then I did make sure to leverage all those goals at the end, right? I got a writing deal. I better make sure I really do well here. So just real quick, I'm going to do another iteration of this course next week. So I'm going to share these slides if anyone wants to attend. And yeah, feel free to, I don't know, ask me anything. Oh, yeah, here.
Do you have some questions here?
Yep.
So this is so inspiring. I do want to follow your way, but the challenge is the time.
Yeah.
Right. So how to balance family time, your working time, and also your career.
Yeah, that's a really great question, because I think right now I haven't been writing so much and I haven't been speaking as much as before because I'm also focusing more on that family time. I think one thing I like to think about is this, like I mentioned one of the goals was like, let's say you meet one person a month, right? But everyone has different timelines. You can do go to an event every 2 months or 3 months because your timeline is your timeline. One example I use for this is in the job market, we're often faced with interviewing, right? So this is another example about time, but there's people who are new grads and they are spending their whole day preparing for interviews. They could spend an entire week, 8 hours a day preparing for interviewing. But let's say for me, I can't do that because I'm working. I can spend, let's say, 4 hours a week preparing. But that doesn't make me like, less valid in the sense that I am still interviewing and I'm doing practicing interviewing. Sorry, I'm not interviewing right now. I'm just using that as an example. So you don't have to compare to people who seem to like they're attending events like every day, every week, like that kind of thing. But just like I think as long as you're doing this, looking in the long run, like maybe over a year you wrote something, that should be good enough. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Thank you.
Hi, Susan. I was just wondering, I'm assuming like when you started out, as you said, like you were like just a new grad and you felt like you weren't as experienced as the people that you were meeting. I was just wondering, like, did you feel like any kind of imposter syndrome from like when you first started meeting up with people to like when you first like gave a talk? And if so, like, how did you like personally overcome those things? Yeah.
Ooh, that's a great question. Like, honestly, when I first started working, I was a data scientist at Bell. So then I definitely had some, like, oh, I don't know if what the stuff I'm working on is as exciting as people from, let's say, insert company A, company B, company C was working from. Because at the time, I think Bell and other telecoms now have a lot of advances. But I think when the time I was working there, they were kind of starting to build out a lot of this, like, advanced, like, ML and AI capabilities. So that was like the beginning. So I had some thoughts like, oh, maybe what I'm working on is like kind of not so exciting and whatnot. But I think once I met more people actually, so there were other new grads that I met at the events that were working at other industries. I realized like they also thought something like that, even though I felt like, I think maybe I met someone from, let's imagine that I met someone from a company. Okay, let's say I was like Bell Susan, I met like Elasticsearch Susan, who was like a new grad. I might be like, oh wow, that's so cool. She works at like Elasticsearch. But then maybe Elasticsearch Susan, she was like, oh wow, like I never knew that like in telecom, like they work on so many different things, right? Like, so actually like it turned out that I did have imposter syndrome, not denying that. I even wrote also about, about that. But I think by zooming out a little bit and then realizing that some other people also think similarly, it made me open up a little more, and then I talked to more people. And I learned, it took it as a learning experience from them too. Like, oh, maybe I don't think I'm as good as them, but maybe I can learn from them, kind of thing. So hopefully that's the way I did it, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We are running a little bit short on time, so let's all thank Susan again for
Thank you.